Hello and welcome. Today we are going to explore how to use watercolor. We will be working wet on dry, which means the paper will be dry and our paint will be wet. However, we're not going to get these wet right away, so please don't add any paint or any water to your pigment right now. We also need something to hold our water in. I have two paper towels here. I have one paper towel here folded up into fourths to make it nice and thick. I have another paper towel nearby just in case. And then I'm not going to be using this particular brush because I find that it's too small for what we're going to be doing today. So if you only have this brush, that's fine. If the bristles are soft, great. If they are not soft, maybe get a Q-tip or find a different brush if you can. All right, I'm going to set that one aside. And let's talk about our palette for a moment here. Oh, we have watercolor paper. It's very important that you use watercolor paper when you're doing watercolors. It's thicker and it absorbs the water more. This video is not meant to be shown to kids. This is for teachers. So please do not show this video to kids. This is for you to learn, and then you take these ideas back to your classroom, to your students. If you noticed, I did allow someone to use this paint set, and you can see that the yellow has a little bit of green in it, which we can avoid by doing the techniques that I'm going to show you today. First off, please notice that your lid, most paint sets, especially Crayola, this is Crayola brand, have this kind of lid, and it might be white, but nowadays usually they're clear. And if you notice, there are two bars on mine. This isn't to keep the paint out. This is actually a watercolor palette. So this is where we're going to be mixing our colors today. You can see I have some leftover paint here from the last time I didn't clean up very well. But you can teach the kids to just dip their paper towel a little bit in water and clean that up so that you don't have that extra pigment when you start to paint. So these are all pigments and they're dry and we need to wake them up. So first thing I always do is I teach the students to wake up their brush, and to do that we want to tap it gently by lifting it, and do you see all those bubbles coming out? We want all the bubbles to come out. So we turn it and we just dip it. And we never ever do this, and we never do this. That will ruin the brush. We want the brush to stay all in one place, and we're just tapping it along the side. And then I want you to teach them to really just do a little bit of dragging their brush up the side, and then put a little tap onto their paper towel. And if color comes off of it, that means their brush is dirty. Now, this is a very cheap brush. When I pull on it, it's super cheap. This paint brush set that I bought was probably like $1. And all these bristles are coming off. So I'm only using this one because it is thicker. It's larger than my other brushes. Okay. So to use our paint palette, this is where we mix our colors, not in here. Okay. What I'm going to teach you is going to keep these colors nice and crisp and clean if students follow the directions that you are teaching them. And my goodness, this is a very terrible brush. It is sending little hairs everywhere. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to pick up some water, and we're going to just put it somewhere. I usually like to start in a corner or off to the side somewhere. Going to put some water in here, okay? If you have a smaller brush, it's going to take you a little bit longer. We don't want the whole thing to be filled up. Do not let students pour water into their palette. In fact, I'm going to switch brushes because this brush is just driving me crazy. So this is a little bit of a smaller brush, but it works so much better. Okay, so now that I have my water, now we're going to choose a color. I highly recommend you start with black, and here's why. I want the students to be able to understand the different value of each color, and value just means the different shades of a certain color. So darker and lighter. And we're going to start with the lightest color and work our way to dark. The kids are going to ask you, why is the black kind of a brown color? Well, that's because to make the pigment black, you're mixing the three primary colors of red, blue, and yellow, and you're not going to ever really get a true black. So as you'll see when we start this, it's going to look brown, but I can show you a way to make black for them once we're done with this. Okay, now we are waking up our color by dipping our paintbrush in water, and then just a little bit. We don't want a lot. Whoops, I keep showing it to my light instead of the camera. So we're just going to get a little bit of black on there, okay, not too much. And we're going to dip that into the water, and it should make a very light gray color. Now, when something is very light, we call it a wash. So it's going to be a small pigment. So allow them to dip their paintbrush into the water, and then we're going to go across our paper, getting darker as we go. So allow them to just do 1 or 2 brush strokes and then stop. Okay, it's very light, and you need to tell them it's very light, because they're going to be like, I don't see anything, because they're used to black looking like black. All right, next, now we're going to dip in water. Well, no, actually we don't have to. All right, it's already woken up. So add just a little more black, not a lot. In fact, that might have been too much. And mix it around. All right, and then they're going to paint the next one. It should be very subtle. They're going to be like, it's the same color, but it's not. You added more pigment to the water. And then do it again. Add some more pigment, and that color should be getting darker. Make sure they mix it up entirely within that bubble of water. There we go. I can definitely see a difference now. And mine looks almost purplish, and I know the video looks a little different. And just have them continue doing that all the way across. They just add a little more of the black pigment, and they go all the way across. Okay, once I have finished, and you can see it looks kind of brownish, here's how you can make it look a little more black. Have them rinse off their brush, okay? Dip it onto the paper towel. Maybe do that another time, because black is really dark. And then pick up a tiny bit of water and wake up their blue. And it doesn't take much blue to do this, okay? And now mix that into their black. And then have them paint nearby that black color and show them the difference. Can you see that? It looks very different. This looks very brown. You're adding a little bit of blue tint to make that more of a black color. So that's going to give them different value, different shades of the color that they want. If your paint set has white, don't let them use it. Okay, don't let them use it. Because kids think that by adding white, you're going to erase whatever you had on there. Watercolor is more for allowing the use of the white space, and it takes a lot of restraint to allow there to be white. So that was wet on dry, and now I'm going to show you a technique for wet on wet, and it's really fun to make the sky. Okay, so we're going to get our paintbrush wet, and then we're going to bring our paint or our water with our paintbrush just all the way across our paper, and make sure it's not dripping wet. Don't stay in one place for too long, but really teach your students to drag that water around and not dip too much. If they have a smaller brush, it might take them a little bit longer, so maybe you could give them a larger brush for this type of working on the art and then have them use the smaller brush to actually put pigment on paper. So as you can see here, right here looks really wet, and then this is a little bit less wet. And what that means is that the paper has absorbed some of that water, and where it's really shiny, you just want to pick that up and drag it to where it's not so shiny. So we want the paper to be wet but not soaking wet. That's why we don't want them to go over the same spot all the time. It should be wet but not dripping wet. Okay, so this is fun. I love doing the sky with this technique because you can really show them that the white part is the clouds. So if they don't want any clouds, they're just going to paint that whole thing blue. So dip the water in and get a little bit of blue pigment on there. Do not let them redip for this part. Don't let them redip. Let them load up their brush and don't let them redip. And then somewhere along that blue area, the wet area, we're going to add some blue patches. Just show them back and forth, just a little bit back. Oh, I redipped. I didn't mean to do that. A little bit of back and forth, just we want some bright areas, okay? And next, we're going to use our paper towel to dry off our brush and then put a little bit of water on the end. And then we're going to spread out. You might want to mention to the kids that this is normal. The bleeding around the edges is totally normal. So now we're going to take and we're going to use that water to blend in all different directions to just keep some white in between. Add a little tiny bit more water and just do that all over because the pigment is already on the paper. We already have that blue. We just want to see different shades of that blue. So we're going to drag it around different parts of the paper. If it's really blue, maybe leave the middle in part blue. A little bit. I don't think I wet my paper enough, but it's looking pretty good. And maybe have one that they just totally move around and make darker. A lot of watercolor is about kind of just giving you the essence of something. So not really to make it look exactly like the thing you're trying to paint. We use watercolor in layers. So if you are trying to make more blue areas and you are not getting the results that you want, you wait maybe an hour or two and come back to it and you can add more layers to it. I highly recommend that you teach the students to do all of their mixing on here and to make it light and then create darkness as they layer it on. It's really hard to see these in-between spaces with the wet. So I'm going to add a little bit more blue so you can see it better. Yeah, there we go. That's better. So it's going to give the illusion of some clouds within that blue space. Just have them tap, 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 and slide a little bit here and there now and then. Leaving some space open. To keep it looking more natural. And all I'm doing is just tapping a little bit back and forth. If their brush gets a little too dry, remind them to put more water on it and really just pull that water around. You can really see how the white space makes it look a little bit more like clouds and less like paint. So I'm going to clean off my brush. And let's say we wanted to mix some colors to make a new color up here. Let's do what we did before. Let's add our water. And they don't need to add a whole bunch of water. These paintbrushes hold a lot of water and hold a lot of paint. So I'm going to do that. Let's say we're going to draw a three-dimensional shape. and how we can use what we just learned on a three-dimensional shape is, let's say the light is shining here and it's going this way. So let's dip our paintbrush in water. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Dip our paintbrush in water, and let's wake up our yellow. Mine's going to be a pretty gross green color. And we're going to go ahead and just paint yellow on there. That's going to be our light, okay? That's a good visual for the kiddos. Rinse off our brush. I'm going to create a shade of a color for this. So let's say we use orange. I wake up my orange and I dip it in that water. That looks actually a little too light, so I'm going to put a little bit more in. Mix it up, and this color right here on the top is going to be my lightest color. So the light is shining on that three-dimensional box, and it's very light. The front is going to be light, but we're going to add to it. So let's add a little more orange. I want to do a little more orange. And now I can paint the front of this box orange. A little bit more orange. There we go. Now I have put too much water on here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my other paper towel, I'm going to fold it, and I'm going to just put, you see that, how it lifted? It's called lifting. It lifted the color up so that I can either repaint it or now it's lighter, but I want it to be back to that darker color. And then this side of the three-dimensional box is going to be way darker, so I'm really going to load up some paint, add it to our palette, put more pigment on there. Really darken it up. So this side is going to be very orange, and I needed to pat it. Paper towel first. That is not dark enough for me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add some brown to it because brown will go well with orange. And I'm going to darken it up without using black. Black will make it really messy. And then I leave it alone. It is bleeding. I can see that it's bleeding onto the other section. Let me get out of the light. There we go. And that's fine. That'll actually look really nice because the light's coming from here. So this would be naturally a little bit darker on that side than it would on the front. And there you go. That's a way to show shade on or different value on a three-dimensional object. So I hope these techniques will help you in using watercolors with your students. Practicing using the different values of a color is a really good idea prior to getting students to start. And then what you can do, now that this is kind of fun, now that this is dry a little bit, you can go back in and maybe you want to add some more blue to it in certain areas and just have them add wet on dry. You could do that. Or even add a little bit of water to it to mix it up. It's a lot of fun. Watercolor is a lot of fun, but it does make students and adults too really have to stop and think of where you want your color to be and where you don't want it to be, because it's all about restraint. Don't paint it too much that you lose the white that you might need, and don't paint it too or not enough where you get really dark colors. All right, I hope you had fun. Thank you for watching.